but they don't actually demonstrate them in a sense that they actually you see it, happening. They still give hopes to people and say gradually it will work. And sometimes excuses like it's because you don't have faith. That is why it didn't work. So it is like the strength should come from within you, not from that person who is making demonstrating to you that he has a God who can do that. You claim to be a pastor, a reverend, a pope. You are standing there in behalf of your God, not my God, your God. I come to you because you believe that your God is capable of doing these things that I have read of, and you have lifted my hopes up. Now you have now put yourself in a state of challenge, and that means you have to prove that the things you have said is true, that it can happen. And so the difference between me going solo and though that person who isn't going solo is just as I've explained to you. They who are not going solo are going by the living text, as the living word of God, the Bible, the Quran, the Buddhist seven books of Buddha, Hinduism books and all that, and they are doing everything to prove that the test that their God in the what is written there is actually true. And if you go into the text and you see what is written there, and you realize that practically it is happening, then you have your you have what you ask for, and you have no reason to doubt in any way. But I have read it too. I've gone through it, and I have every reason to doubt because it is not happening. I know that nobody has been touched and AIDS is cured. If that was the case, there are so many AIDS cases right now in Britain, all over the world. All those people would have been cured by now. All those people would have been well by now. Are there no heavy evangelists and pastors out there? And the silly excuse that they give you is that, or they give me is that I have no faith. Because I have no faith, they cannot cure me. The book also tells you that the dead man was raised from the grave. That dead man, the man was dead. Did he have faith? No, the man didn't have any faith. Lazarus, who was risen from the grave, had no faith. He was dead. A dead man with his cells and everything was dead. So it was the man who was raising him who has got the faith, has got the power to raise him from the grave. It is not the dead man who had faith. No, it was the man who raised the dead man who has got faith. He has got God. So Yehoshua has got God because he has got God, and he has a very powerful God, and a God who is capable of raising the dead and creating people. He was able to make such a request and made it happen, that Lazarus was risen from the grave, or the dead man was raised. If you decide to go out there and demonstrate that your God is capable of bringing rain or fire from heaven, you demonstrate that. But as I said, if I want fire, to my view, the practical sense of approach that I know, not by the book, if I want fire, I have to go through the scientific method of lighting a match to get fire, or using two stones and cracking two stones together to get some fire, to light something up. That's what I know. Why? Because God made those stones and he put it there. I'm looking for God. You looking for God. That is more practical. Now, do you have to prove to you how to get fire? I don't need to prove. I didn't demonstrate to you with any book of any sense of who God should be. Now, the people of the kind, of the religious kind, the claimed religious kind, those are the religious people I'm talking about. I may be believer or religious. I am a believer, not necessarily religious. I'm not practicing something which is not real, something which cannot happen. I'm practicing a living life of what is there, what is already there, what I have, depending on what I know and what I have, just like every person else. But the difference between any other person probably is because they might not believe in the idea of what is the source of which brought about all the very things that we depend on, that I depend on, including myself. And the source that I'm talking about, if you read Corinthians, of those who are at the opposite side of what I say, if you read the book of Corinthians, that is First Corinthians, in the book of First Corinthians, there is this statement that reveals. Corinthians is the book of what was being used, or the text, wherever they get this information from, whoever was saying these things in Corinthians. He spoke of what people of that kind, or of the people who really have got this kind of demonstration of religion, whichever way it is, what their characters are, you know. In Corinthians, First Corinthians, I think, First Corinthians 3:7. It's it's First Timothy. Sorry, Second Timothy, is it? Yeah, I think so. Second Timothy chapter 3, verse 7, or let's say verse 5. It's more to be with dangerous of times are coming. Dangerous times are coming. Even in the Bible, the topic reveals to us the dangerous times that are coming. Life is always dangerous. There are dangers all over. Now, this text tells you here. It says, from if we read from verse 4, it says, traitors, headstrong, heady lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power, and from such people turn away. Okay, they demonstrating a form of godliness, denying its power, and from such people turn away. You use the book and you make all that you want to say, but you turn around and privately tell people, denying the power. And every way you think like the way I am thinking right now, but you don't acknowledge it publicly. You acknowledge something different publicly. You acknowledge and demonstrate godliness in public, and yet you are not ready to stand up like the prophet that Elijah stood up and demonstrated the power. You are not ready to call on the so-called God that you are so religious about, to listen to what you ask for. If you go on to 6, he says, for of this sort are those who creep into households and make captives of gullible women, and loaded down with sins, led away by various lusts, always learning and never able to come to the knowledge of what truth. Lying to women, or taking, and women can easily be lied to. You use women as a bait, and they do that convincingly, telling them, taking advantage of them to use for their own purposes, their own gain. And there are lots of these going on. That's how they achieve. Somebody will be in the same situation and will be saying that, God says and God says and God says. And a woman isn't ready to think carefully to ask himself these questions. Why that you believe in God so much, and yet your life is a wreck? Or why do you believe in God, a God who does all these things? Because behind the scene, when they go into the households and make captive of these women, I'm sure they don't tell the women of the abilities of which the God that they believe in is. Maybe their conversation becomes more normal or more human approach. They sort of work straight and make their request and say, okay, could you do this for me? Or can you do that for me? Or could you put this, could you, they sort of come up with a straightforward, normal life approach.